Welcome everybody to the CSFL Season 9 award show. Before we kick off Season 10 and the preseason coming up this weekend, we wanted to do the award show for Season 9, and I am here with the legend himself, the Demons. Demons,
Thanks
thanks
for
for
that
being here,
intro.
man. The legend.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Wildcats. That's awesome, man. Glad I'm the legend.
The legend. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Offensive MVP, defensive MVP, offensive rookie of the year, and defensive rookie of the year are the four awards here. And then we'll also talk about coach of the year. As
Sounds good.
everyone knows, in season 9, the the Dragons, they won the championship. But they were really good in the regular season, but there were a few teams that just dominated in the regular seasons, and the Demons being one of them. Um, it was a great
Vipers
season,
also had a
obviously.
strong season.
Yeah, Vipers had a strong season. What's your breakdown of a season 9, and we're gonna see a lot of those names actually up here. We can go right into the offensive MVP. Actually, let's go right into offensive MVP. What's your thoughts, and who do you think should win?
All right, so I think this is a great opportunity here. One last look at season 9, close the door on that one, and then move ahead to season 10. So I did it a little differently this time around rather than just narrowing it down to a few candidates. I took candidates, the best player, the most valuable player from every team. So here you go, right in front of you, my opinion on who the best offensive
Cool.
players were for each team. So out of this
Yeah.
list, you do have to narrow it down to a few, though. And honestly, to me, it really comes down to some of the more top teams and the players on those top teams on who you should be considering for this award. I think you're looking at Pat Hall, Corey Moore, Bryce Locker, Eric Bell. Maybe you look at Antrell Adams and he broke some records, but Antrell Adams, like, it's the same problem I'm going to have with Mike Archer in the Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's just the circumstance and where he got those stats.
Right.
I think some of was he that valuable if they're losing that many games? That's the way I'm going to look at it this year. And there's no
Right.
offensive records set this year, which is also a big thing, is we usually take records into account a fair bit. Nobody set a record. The only record set was Eric Bell
Wow.
with wins with 12. Um,
Wow.
which I mean, it's a team record as well, right? So it's not really a record. Um, Rico Bennett on the Gators had a good year as well, but Bryce Locker was the better running back.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick one, I would probably. I think it's. I don't know. I have a hard time, Johnny. I'm gonna say it's one of the guys from the top 4 teams, from one of the top 4 seeds. You're either going Demons, Wildcats, Vipers, or Rhinos. So which one is it? It's gonna be, you're looking at Moore, Hall, Bell, or Locker. I'm leaning towards Locker, to tell you the truth. If I had to, I like his numbers. He has 2 really good seasons in a row. Uh, he was
Yeah.
he he was a force to be reckoned with on the Rhinos. When you played the Rhinos, you had a game plan for Bryce Locker. But you could same could be said about all these guys.
Yeah, for sure. Bryce Locker, this is 3 seasons in a row, right? Because he had two rushing titles, and now he got another one now, I believe it is. So yeah, he's had
Yeah, he
two rushing titles in a row, back to back, which is pretty incredible. He had 20 touchdowns. Travis Stovall, the Dragons, I know the running back, he had 21. But Bryce Locker, like you said, he had more yards. He was dominant. They did a lot better statistically. And I know what I wanted to say in the intro is that the Dragons had a great season and all in the playoffs, but none of that is being accounted for. This is just in the regular season that I'm focusing on. And Bryce Locker played amazing in the regular season. Like, incredibly. Um, but yeah, Pat Hall obviously had an amazing season, 143 quarterback rating, 4,000 yards, 43 touchdowns. Is pretty insane with 11-5 record. Um, it's really hard to pick which one. You know me, and my history. I definitely lean towards the running backs and the wide receivers, just because I know it's a lot harder of a position to fill and to be great at. Takes a lot more. Quarterback's obviously the hardest position to play on the field, but they get a lot of reps, and it's an argument to be made though, because they get the ball every single play, and so I understand that. Um, yeah, so we're gonna have to pick one. I know Mike Archer had an incredible season as well, but like you said, he did not have a lot of wins. Definitely
Well, I think
considered.
Antrell Adams on the Blue Jays overshadowed him. That's why I put him up there. Uh,
Yeah,
Before we pick the award, too, I want to say the bold are the league leaders. Those were the season 9 league leaders for those stats. That's why they're bolded numbers. Jaron Owens for the Cobras, with 8 return touchdowns. I mean, he's not going
yeah.
to win the award for this, but it needs a shout out. Someone needs to point the finger at that and say, this guy was a force on special teams. Like, that is amazing and good for him. We don't have a special teams award, though, so it's just, it's, that's why I had nowhere else to put that outstanding season other than here, but great for him. I'm going to make my final argument for Locker right here because the 3 quarterbacks come down to this. I'm just going to go in the order that I'm reading them. So Eric Bell led the league in rating, led the league in completions percentage, led the league in wins. Efficient quarterback, made great throws, but his yardage is not near Pat Hall's and his touchdowns aren't near Pat Hall's. Corey Moore with the Vipers, great record, also a force on the ground just like Bell. Lots of touchdowns, but 400 yards less than Pat Hall, and like significantly low. Well, I mean in CSFL, significantly lower rating than the other two. Pat Hall, what he has is on the other guys is no running stats, so he makes up for that with his pass yards, and he's got more losses than the other two. It's really hard to differentiate which one of these 3 had the best season, whereas you can definitively say Bryce Locker had the best season at running back. And I like Bryce Locker for this award.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was definitely leaning towards giving it to Eric Bell. Just because when you watch the games and you see the Vipers, Corey Moore, and you see Pat Hall, they are dominant, but they have a lot of weapons as well. The Demons have a lot of weapons as well, but he played phenomenal. He had the 12 wins. He has a number 1 seed. He was the most efficient. 144 quarterback rating on average is insanity. Only 3 interceptions is insanity. 12-2 record. And also rushed for 4 touchdowns. He was incredible. If you could pick any one of these quarterbacks who had the best season when you watch the actual games, it's Eric Bell. I thought Eric Bell's numbers were actually a lot higher, but he just played so efficient. Um, I really want to give it to Eric Bell, but I'm gonna give him the big shout out, and then of course, like you said, the big shout out to Jaron Owens for those 8 kick return touchdowns. Antrell Adams, man, I really love Antrell Adams. Like 1,800 yards, 82 touchdowns, 24 touchdowns, one away from the tying the record at 25, set by Randy Dorsey and Dave Rogers. He had an incredible season, but again, the losses. So I'm going to go with Bryce Locker. We both agree on it. He is the number 1 guy at his position, and he was the number 1 player in season 9 um, at running back and on the offense in general. So Bryce Locker, offensive MVP for season 9.
There we go. The Rhinos can chalk one up. They can add one. I'll beat him to it. He can add another thing to his trophy case where he's now got an offensive MVP under his belt. So congratulations, Rhinos. Congratulations, Bryce Locker.
Congratulations, man. And honestly, it's really bittersweet because Mark Marshall, one of the best running backs in CSFL history, got replaced by Bryce Locker, and Bryce Locker did what he never did, and he had a rushing title. He actually has 2 rushing titles, and now has an offensive MVP stat, which Mark Marshall never had. Bryce Locker's creeping up on being one of the greatest running backs of all time. Be honest with you, with the run that he had, bringing his team to the #1 seed, and now with this season here, leading the league in rushing yards. Um, this guy is still young, in his prime. He's a dangerous thing the Rhinos have there, Bryce Lockerman. He is the Rhino. He is the horn of the Rhino, for sure.
He is the Rhino. Love it.
All right. Defensive MVP. Love to hear your thoughts on all this. I've got someone in mind, but let's hear your thoughts. We got to talk about everybody here.
Well, first things first. It was not Fred Smith's fault for the Blue Jays. It was not Fred Smith's fault.
No, he played amazing. 9 pass deflections, 3 interceptions, sacked, 5 tackles for loss, 61 yards as a middle linebacker. Yeah, Blue Jays played amazing.
Okay.
Look at the list, everybody. If you're watching the video here, take a quick look at this list and see who stands out to you. I'm gonna tell you right away, just unless you got something. I know who stands out on this list, not even paying attention to the numbers. One of the greatest defensive players last season, obviously, was Grant Hale. Grant Hale had an incredible season. He also had an incredible playoff run. When you go back and look at the highlights and all the reels, like those 9 tackles for loss, well, that is a lot. And 7 sacks, that is a lot. Doesn't do it justice because this guy was blowing up plays, man, and really allowed Albert Maynor and George Mosley on the other side to really dominate because he was a force on his own, right? And then obviously Trent Cannon is a beast for the Demons and was a huge reason why they went to the #1 seed and why they had a huge defensive presence. Just with Dombrowski, and they got Morris, and now they got Trent Cannon back there. They got 3 big guys that love to hit people, and Trent Cannon was set loose in season 9. Piranhas,
Yeah,
Jason
he
Smith
doesn't have the
played amazing
tackles,
too.
but sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead, go ahead. No, he doesn't have the tackles, the 32 tackles, but he had the tackles for loss, the sacks, and when you watch the games, like these numbers, they don't. I know numbers don't lie, but they can be deceiving. But when you actually watch the games and seen every single game, which I have, you know who Trent Cannon is. You watch like 1-2 games of the Demons, you already know who big Trent Cannon is coming off the edge
Timely
there.
plays.
Yeah,
Yeah, he made
timely
timely
plays.
plays. Those
Yeah,
2 forced fumbles both went for touchdowns. They were sack fumbles. So it's like
beautiful.
he's got, if he doesn't force the fumble, he's got 11 sacks. So it's he was a pass rusher playing a linebacker in a 3-4 defense. So he that's what his numbers show. He had an amazing
Yeah.
season. Another guy who's been in this league for a long time and has actually won this award before is Jason Williams from the Scorpions. Led the league in tackles,
Wow.
87 again. This guy is a beast out there. He does it all for the Scorpions. It's just unfortunate for the Scorpions that they don't have defensive numbers to back it up. They need another Jason Williams. That's what they need. They need to clone that guy. Uh, Josh Cameron for the Vipers. I think he wasn't the first one to reach 99 overall, was he? There was someone on the Vipers that reached 99 overall. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, don't play like you don't remember Dale Wooden, big old
No,
Dale
no,
Wooden.
actually, no, I didn't. I didn't remember. I couldn't remember. I thought it was Cameron for a second, but okay,
What
yeah,
was his
it's
name
amazing.
again? What was the name?
Dale Wooden. Yeah, okay. It's
I'm
amazing
joking.
that they got a guy like that though. They got the 99. They got another linebacker at 99, and they got Josh
Oh man,
Cameron out there dominating at middle
yeah,
linebacker. Like the
yeah,
Vipers' defense is insane, and this guy's a huge reason.
yeah. It's
Glenn
true.
Anderson has big numbers for the Wildcats. I mean, I
Yeah,
gotta
he does.
I gotta watch this. I did this a little bit with offensive too, as I'm talking about my own guys too much. But Trent Cannon is the only one on this list, and the only one on both lists who set a league record with
It's
sacks
true.
at 9 sacks, and that
Yeah,
That to me is what stands out. I mean, a lot of these other numbers, they look impressive, but they don't stand out that much compared to other seasons. The sack record is the one that I think, and the fact and how much Trent Cannon impacted a game. So he'd be. I can't
Yeah.
say he'd be my pick because I'm not picking my own guy. but
No, but
I
I
like,
want an
yeah,
argument for everybody. I want an argument for everybody, and obviously not even knowing, not just because you're here, not even paying attention to anything that anyone's saying. Trent Cannon was the person that I was going to pick just because I'm a never ever person. If you said a never ever, if you do something that's never ever happened or set a record, you know what I mean? For me, that's, that's legend stuff. That's like legendary stuff, right? And when you watch the games, and then of course wins is important, and we're talking about the regular season. No one got more wins. No one got more sacks. No one had more pressure. No one came up bigger in the biggest moments, and got their team to the number one seed than Trent Cannon. He's a cannon. He's the cannonball. Trent Cannonball coming off the edge there, knocking people over. He's definitely defensive MVP for season 9, no doubt in my mind. But there are some great, great players here. Like you were saying, Glenn Anderson had a phenomenal season and was a big reason why the Wildcats were in a lot of those games. Josh Cameron, I could talk about the Vipers for hours, how amazing their Hall of Fame linebacking core is with Dale Wood and Josh Cameron and Reggie Dorsey, who they've now brought in from a trade from the Werewolves. Just there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run. But Isaac Cobb found a way, but that's another whole story. But in the regular season, these guys scared people. They scare people. The Vipers for sure. And they make you double think your game plan. Obviously, the Tigers have bowed out, but James Walker also had an incredible season, 10 tackles for a loss. I know he was on the field more than a lot of offenses, but he really came up big for that team and really fought to the bitter end. Obviously, Irv Orlando, one of the greatest defensive players of all time, and also who won season 8 defensive MVP just last season or the year before this. Again, comes up huge for his team. In the big moments. 4 interceptions, I believe, was a league tied for number one, right? Was 4 interceptions. This guy's a force to be reckoned with. Piranhas, Jason Smith, force to be reckoned with. This guy, honestly, I don't want to say he got snubbed, but he was so close to winning the record last year, or in season 8. He was so close. I really wanted to give it to him. And again, he came up huge for the Piranhas, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs. Um, Andre Brooks, last guy I'll talk about, 2 defensive touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I really like that guy. I really like defensive touchdowns. I really like to lean towards those because of how rare they really are. Those things are worth a lot to me if you could divvy these out in points. Defensive touchdowns weigh a lot for me, and I really like Andrew Brooks in that season. And of course, Grant Hale, Brady Clark. You could talk about these guys forever. Let's move on to offensive rookie of the year. What do you think?
I want one last conclude. I want to give that a shout out to Andre Brooks as well. The only one on this list who's not a linebacker. Andre Brooks
Really?
had a great,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
I
Good
mean,
point. Good point.
and when you look at it, it's really hard to differentiate a lot of the middle linebackers from one another. Their stats are all very similar, and you got to go back. You go back to even the argument you made on the offensive teams is you got to look at the better defenses and the better teams and how they contributed to the better defenses. And even when you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about touchdowns, it just reinforces the Trent Cannon pick, which thank you for that, by the way. Was
Yeah.
the 2 forced fumbles were touchdowns. They're just
Yeah.
not picked up by Cannon. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a great choice, and thank you for it. And I'll move on now.
You made the right pick,
Okay,
Jeff.
so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. How can I say it without saying it?
That's fine. I'll say it
yeah,
for you. Okay.
yeah. Uh, offensive rookie of the year candidates. So I didn't put one for every team because a lot of
Of
teams,
course. Of
yes,
course.
we all have rookies, but they not. I mean, there's certain rookies that played more, have better numbers, were on a different
Of
level.
course.
and a lot of these teams didn't have guys that really got enough play time to stack up to the other group. So this is the main group of candidates. Jimmy Capps, we all know his story. Came in, I believe he was Benjamin Harris who started the year for the Bears, and Jimmy Capps came in, and there's yeah. They had the other quarterback they were trying to start as well, and Jimmy Capps came in, won a lot of games, went 6-5, brought him to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and I know we're not counting playoffs, but he rebounded his Bears team.
He got them there. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Archer has just phenomenal stats, but I mean, you know my opinion on these stats. That's 4-11 record. There's a reason he's got 4,500 pass yards. When you're down by 20 a lot. Yeah.
Sure.
Nicholas, he still had to do it.
And he still did it. And he only threw 8 picks with, going against a defense that was giving up, I believe it was 35 points per game. I'll
say
really
what's telling about that was the Blue Jays drafted a quarterback first round last year.
They did.
There was obviously something they watched no one watches the Blue Jays more than the Blue Jays owner, and he drafted a quarterback. He saw something there that he needed to change. Now Mike Archer still had phenomenal numbers, and I'm not trying to diminish that. Just making my case for why I don't think we should pick him, because I have another thing in mind. But Nicholas Hawk acquired on a trade for Dombrowski, and he had a great year for the Gators. Had some return touchdowns in there too. I mean, not outstanding numbers, but good for a rookie. Absolutely worth noting on here. Ostrom and Cobb, both running backs, started for their teams, Monsters and Piranhas, respectively. And I mean, look at those numbers. They almost ran for the same amount of yards. Cobb had more touchdowns, but they were both huge impacts for their teams, and Ostrom was a big part of the Monsters' turnaround.
Huge. Yeah, huge.
Tigers Kenneth Johnson. Those are good numbers for a rookie. Almost 1,000 yards receiving, 60 receptions on the year. Good for him.
Yeah.
But here we go.
Dun dun dun.
This guy only has. Well, I'm gonna go back to offensive. 1923 rush yards. He was only 30 yards less than Bryce Locker rushing. 17 rushed. Yeah, wow. Imagine if he just broke one more out. Yeah. Now he has less receiving yards, less touchdowns overall, and all that. But
of course,
who was the one guy on the Wolverines this year that you looked out for on offense?
Of course,
Johnny Romolo.
Yeah,
Johnny Romolo. Now the Wolverines, they didn't make the playoffs, but they were a threat too, and they were a threat. Did they make the playoffs? I don't remember.
Nope, they just missed. They were 7-8. Just missed.
Yep. So he was a big part of that turnaround. With his progressions, I expect great things from this guy. If I had to pick this award, Johnny, I would say Johnny Romolo all day. Wouldn't even be a hesitation.
Wow.
But I'll let you state your case now.
I love hearing all this stuff, and I know the league loves hearing all this stuff, and I know the diehard CSFL fans and the people who've been with us since day one love to hear all the stuff that you're saying, and I love listening to you break it down, Demons. You do it best. You do it the best, man. And when I look at this list, man, honestly, this is hard, man. This is hard for me. The offensive, defensive MVP, no problem. Offensive rookie, this might be one of the best rookie seasons we've had since season 1, season 3. These rookies went off and were huge impacts. Jimmy Capps was a humongous impact. William Ostrom, humongous impact. Isaac Cobb, humongous impact. Isaac Cobb got his team to the playoffs, had more rushing touchdowns, and honestly, he tore people up. You want to talk about a good game? We'll watch the Demons and Piranhas game. That was a thriller. And it was Isaac Cobb.
I'm pretty sure he ran 200 yards against me that day.
yeah, and Isaac Cobb did that to everybody. I watched the games. Believe me, he made Josh Cameron and Dale Wooden, we're talking about the Vipers linebackers, he made them look average. Isaac Cobb is a diamond in the rough. and had huge progressions. And I know Jay Bomber wishes they could bring Isaac Cobb with them, but they can't. Isaac Cobb's gonna. I love Isaac Cobb, man. He's so great when you watch him. Obviously, Kenneth Johnson had a great season, but the Tigers just didn't accumulate the wins where the Piranhas did. William Ostrom had an amazing season. He was bouncing off people, and he, like you said earlier, came up big in the big times, like timely plays. William Ostrom's definitely the definition of that. Mike Archer, he just lit it up. No one could stop him. I know the defense for the Blue Jays could stop nobody, and it is not Mike Archer's fault. Let me talk to the Blue Jays if the Blue Jays are listening. It is not Mike Archer's fault. They lost these games and their defense gave up 40 points. Okay, Mike Archer was doing everything he could to keep his team in. No one's a bigger fan than Mike Archer, and I know he wants to play, and I know Mike Archer would play, will be phenomenal. He had huge progressions. He was 81 and then jumped up to 90, I believe. 139 quarterback rating as a rookie, 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. Yes, he only had 4 wins and did not close out a lot of games, but one of those wins, I believe, was against the Rhinos. Was it against the Rhinos? Maybe I gotta look back.
Yeah,
Anyways,
just look back. It's been too long.
honestly, Mike Archer played phenomenal, and a lot of quarterbacks, you switch them with the Blue Jays right now in that exact same season, and they will bomb it. They will throw a ton of picks, and they will not do well. Mike Archer rose through the ashes and rose through the fire and proved that he is a great, great player. Love Mike Archer. Jimmy Caps obviously was extremely clutch. 21 and 11 doesn't really tell the story, but talk about the opposite. Mike Archer and Jimmy Caps. Mike Archer's got all the numbers, none of the wins. Jimmy Caps got none of the numbers and had a great win, and had a lot of wins and a lot of really close wins and a lot of really close games. The losses that he did lose were like super close games. Jimmy Caps is a closer and is really clutch, actually, and I'm really excited about his progression. Speaking about progressions, he jumped up to 92 overall, I believe, as well. So these two young guys, love seeing it. But yeah, Johnny Romolo, the more and more you talk about it, there was no one that was more of a bigger impact, and we're talking about MVP here, most valuable player. Wolverines, it was all Johnny Romolo. He's definitely winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. I was just playing with you guys. This is a tough one. It is tough because I've seen all the games, but let's be honest, it's going to Johnny Romolo. He was arguably the best running back of the season, never mind rookie running back. He had all the touchdowns, he had all the yards. No one could stop him. He was the horse in the stadium that everybody knew he was going to get the ball, and they still couldn't stop him. Johnny Romolo, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Congratulations, Wolverines, on that feat, because that's not an easy feat to get. And Johnny Romolo, that was a home run pick for the Vipers, or for the Wolverines. And honestly, it made everybody look at all the rookie running backs differently. The way Johnny Romolo and Isaac Cobb and William Ostrom came out in Season 9.
These are 3 guys who are long-term starters that are going to light the league up.
Yeah.
And John, yeah, congratulations, Wolverines, to Johnny Romolo.
Absolutely. All right. Defensive Rookie of the Year, our Defensive Rookie of the Year. Love to hear your thoughts on this, Devens.
Last but not least, we got the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I'm happy to say there's not one middle linebacker on this one. So we've got safeties, we've got outside linebackers and corners, we got a left end in there, lots of diversity in the positions. This one's also a tough one. I mean, obviously no league leaders here. There's like a few guys that played all season long. Billy Myers for the Bears had a good season. 10 pass deflections, an interception, a forced fumble. It's pretty good for a rookie, especially at that safety position, which we all know in the CSFL. I mean, that's a hard position to play in the CSFL. That's why safeties don't get very good progression. Safety is tough.
For sure.
Monsters Bo Johnson had a good year back there at free safety as well. Scorpions, Eric Beatriz with 15 path deflections.
Wow.
I might have to double check that. I mean, that actually Duke Warner on the Wolverines at 17 pass deflections. I mean, I don't know how that didn't lead the league, but that seems like a fair bit of pass deflections to me. But clearly it didn't, because I would have bolted it. Who I
Yeah.
like on this list though, the most out of everybody, it's tough. That is a tough one. I do like Thomas Robinson from the Wildcats, one of the few on the list to make the Snow Bowl, with 51 tackles, 10 for loss, 3 sacks, interception, and pass deflection. This guy was doing it all at the outside linebacker position for a very successful team. I like
Yeah.
Thomas Robinson if I had to pick one.
Yeah. Thomas Robinson, he played so well that you didn't know he was a rookie. People saw him in there, and he just played right with the veterans, hopped in since day one, and never looked back. Took over the position and played great, and got the Wildcats really, really far, and had a great season. Got them 11 wins, and of course, 10 tackles for a loss, 7 pass deflections as an outside linebacker. You're definitely making an impact. Ali Gabriel had a good season. T.J. Jones had a good season. Eric Beatrice. Is that how do you pronounce it? Beatrice?
Beatriz, or yeah, I mean Beatriz
Beatrice.
could be either one.
Beatrice.
Yeah, gotta
15
ask the
pass
Scorpion.
deflections. He was fourth. He was tied with fourth. And it was actually Santonio Robertson, Michael Gibbs, and Duke Warner that were above him. So Duke Warner, 17 pass deflections, was third most, which is a boatload. And the Wolverines played great. So Duke Warner is definitely he was starting as the number one corner for most of the season because they had Ty Ward at the number 2. So Duke Warner was lining up against a lot of number ones, and they almost made the playoffs. They had a lot of wins and played really well, and he had that many pass deflections.
Yeah,
He's got
Duke
a
Warner
great
is no
argument.
choice.
Yeah, he's got a great argument, and when you watch the games, the Wolverines played really well. They actually have 2 really great corners now. Ty Ward was a home run pick, obviously number one pick, first round number 1 pick, and then Duke Warner they get in the second round in their second draft, and he was a home run pick in my opinion. He's playing phenomenal, 17 pass deflections. Um, he doesn't really have the tackles, but that's because he's a corner and he didn't allow them
Corner,
to catch
yeah.
the ball, right? Like he was playing the number 1 guy. Looking at the list though, another big name that stands out to me was J.J. Manning. J.J. Manning was like dummying people. The Piranhas defense was so good with their linebacking core, Jason Smith, Jeff Jackson, and my favorite name in the league, David Benucci. Their linebacking core is phenomenal, and they actually allowed Scott Clifford, who was on the right end, and now they have J.J. Manning. What a beautiful draft pick by Jay Ballmer, the head coach for the Piranhas, who now owns the Panthers. What a great pickup for J.J. Manning to really complement and harmonize that defense, because that was the only spot that they were really lacking. And now, who do you block? You got J.J. Manning and Scott Clifford and those linebackers coming off the edges, and you can't even go up the middle because they got Jason Smith. Piranhas are, linebacking core and defensive line was a big reason why they did so well in the regular season and obviously in the playoffs. And J.J. Manning, as a rookie, was a big part of that. He really was. Um,
Absolutely, yeah. Lots of teams are getting so much stronger on defense, and I
yeah,
just want to say before you go on a little bit here is like, because you're going up the list, and Lonnie Byram and Blake Kuhn. I didn't mean to just skip over them. They both had phenomenal seasons. Gators, Gorillas had made
yeah,
great picks with these guys. It's just that when you're looking, there's 3 right outside linebackers on here, and I just thought Thomas Robinson was more impactful than them. So that was the
you're
reason why
right.
I skipped over them. It was just they were absolutely impact players for their teams. But
Yeah,
I do want to say before you go through too much more of this list too is to to me still it's between like Thomas Robinson. I would say that, or I'd say Billy Myers, because Billy Myers is playing a difficult position. So I want to add that to my
yeah.
opinion here before you could continue on. Anyway, sorry, Johnny.
Don't be sorry at all. I want to hear it. Dude. Just interject whenever you're ready. I go on rants all the time. Everybody knows that. No problem. um, no, no, no. You're right. You're right, Bill. That is actually should have a lot more weight to it. The strong safety position because of how difficult of position that is. These guys get cooked all the time, right? So that is a very good point. 10 pass deflections. Honestly, I feel like the corner is just as difficult. So if I was
It
going
is.
safety or corner or secondary, I would have to give it to Duke Warner. And Thomas Robinson, should I say? Um, he probably had the best season as a rookie defensive player because he did so well and had so many wins and everything. It's just JJ Manning had a really impactful. He was the best rookie on that team or on that defensive side of the ball for the Piranhas and the Wildcats. Thomas Robinson was a big impact for them too. It's it's hard. J.J. Manning, Thomas Robinson, or Duke Warner. Um, I guess if we're talking just regular season, it's got to be Thomas Robinson because they got the 11 wins and the 10 tackles for loss, 7 pass deflections, and a lot of tackles. Yeah, we're going with
I
Wildcats.
can hear it
Thomas
in your
Robinson.
voice, Johnny. I
Yeah,
can hear it in
yeah.
your voice. There's some reluctance to pick your own guy
It is. There
because
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he is the most deserving on this list. He's the right choice. He is that's a great choice. Congratulations to Thomas Robinson and the Wildcats.
Congratulations to Thomas Robinson and the Wildcats. I just really wanted to give it to J.J. Manning or Duke Warner because I know how impactful they were to their team. So big shout outs to the Piranhas and the Wolverines. You guys picked great rookies, and everybody that had a rookie on this list and on the offensive rookies. Blake Kuhn, we didn't really talk enough about him. He had an amazing season for the Gators. The Gators did really well last season, and I think the Gators are going to do even better this season. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching the video. Any final thoughts, Demons,
Are we
on the
doing coach
picks?
too or no?
Oh yeah, no, can't forget about the coach. I already know who the coach is though. This one is definitely going to go, in my opinion, to the Demons. I know we were talking about maybe the Bears because of that comeback that they had there. I was even really leaning towards the Vipers and the Rhinos because they had incredible seasons as well. But in my opinion, 12 wins. It's never been done before. The Eric Bell, they just game planned beautifully all season. They had the number one, seed. You got to give it to the Demons. Congratulations, Demons.
Well, thanks,
Coach,
Johnny.
Coach of the year for sure. There's no thought on that one. That one's an easy one.
Well, thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts on these picks? Do you think we got all the right ones?
I think you got him all right. I think yeah, offensive MVP was probably the toughest one, but we ended up at the right spot. I
Yeah.
think they're all great picks and well deserving. And let's move on to season 10.
All right, guys. Season 10 coming up next, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks, Demons.
Thanks.